At 11:47 a.m. on May 29, 1943, Captain James Hartwell climbed into the cockpit of his B-17 at RAF Alconbury, watching as the ground crew loaded the last belt of 50 caliber ammunition into the bomber's 17th gun position. He was 26 years old, had flown 42 combat missions, but had no experience with what he was about to fly. The YB-40 weighed 4,000 pounds more than any flying fortress he had ever piloted. In the 3 months before May, the 8th Air Force had lost 173 B-17s over Europe. Without long-range fighter escorts, German interceptors tore through bomber groups on their way back from deep inside Germany. Focke-Wulf 190s attacked head-on from high angles, where the nose guns couldn't aim fast enough. Messerschmitt 109s dove through formations, picking off the stragglers who couldn't keep up. Crews called it the gauntlet. Half of them never made it to 25 missions. The solution looked simple. If fighters couldn't escort bombers all the way to Germany and back, then make a bomber that could fight. The Army Air Force's engineers stripped everything from a B-17F that wasn't a gun. Bombs removed. The bombardier's station turned into a twin 50 caliber chin turret. A second dorsal turret added behind the radio room. The single waist guns replaced with twin mounts. Extra cheek guns fitted on the forward fuselage. Ammunition capacity tripled to 11 2,075 rounds. Additional armor plates welded around crew positions. 16 50 caliber machine guns on one aircraft. They called it the YB-40, the Flying Destroyer. Douglas Aircraft in Tulsa built 12 conversions by March. The 92nd Bombardment Group at Alconbury received them in early May. Colonel William Reed picked 7 crews to test them in combat. Hartwell got aircraft 42-5738, nicknamed Hedgehog, but the weight changed everything. A normal B-17F could climb to 20,000 feet in 25 minutes. The YB-40 needed 48. The control yoke felt heavier, slower to respond. The test pilot at Wright Field had warned Hartwell that the center of gravity was off because of all the ammo stored behind the bomb bay. Still, the guns were incredible. Hartwell had never seen so much firepower on a bomber. The chin turret alone could tear apart a Focke-Wulf before it even reached firing range. Every approach angle was covered, every attack met with crossing fire. The mission was clear: escort the main formation to Saint-Nazaire and attack the submarine pens. 7 YB-40s were placed in the most vulnerable spots, low squadrons, trailing elements, where German fighters always struck first. Hartwell started the engines at 1:25 p.m. All 4 Wright Cyclones ran smoothly. The control tower cleared them for takeoff at 1:50. Hedgehog rolled down the runway with 168 other B-17s behind it. Target time, 4 p.m. If you want to see how Hartwell's flying destroyer performed against the Luftwaffe, hit that like button. Every like helps us share these forgotten innovations, and please subscribe. Back to Hartwell. The formation reached the French coast at 3:30. Flak bursts speckled the sky over Guernsey. Radio chatter confirmed German fighters scrambling from airfields near Rennes. Hartwell's flight engineer reported fuel use higher than expected. The YB-40 burned more fuel climbing. Saint-Nazaire appeared through broken clouds at 4:02 p.m. The main formation dropped their bombs and turned for home. The empty B-17s climbed faster and flew quicker. Hartwell pushed the throttles forward, but Hedgehog began to fall behind. Standard B-17s cruised at 160 mph. Hartwell managed only 148 with full power. His flight engineer, Technical Sergeant Paul Morrison, 31, with 200 hours maintaining B-17s before the YB-40 project, climbed down from the top turret to check the engines. He frowned. Cylinder head temperature on engine number 3 was climbing into the red. The extra drag and weight made the engines strain beyond limits. Morrison eased back power on number 3 before it overheated. Hedgehog slowed to 142 mitanti. The main formation was now 3 miles ahead. Then 4. Hartwell could see the other 6 YB-40s struggling too, all falling behind their groups. The radio operator called from the waist. Staff Sergeant Frank Delaney had spotted contrails at 4 o'clock high, German fighters climbing to intercept. Focke-Wulf 190s from Jagdgeschwader 2 out of Warners, 6, maybe 8 aircraft, were hunting stragglers. Hartwell keyed the intercom, all gunners ready. The chin turret gunner reported clear sight lines. The ball turret rotated freely. Both waist gunners confirmed their twin mounts loaded and tracking. The first Focke-Wulf dove from 5 o'clock, range 1,200 yards. The tail gunner opened fire at 800. Tracers reached out toward the diving fighter. The German pilot broke left and pulled up, never firing a shot. The next attack came from 11 o'clock high, 2 Focke-Wulfs in trail formation. The chin turret gunner locked on the lead plane and fired a 4-second burst. 50 caliber rounds ripped across the FW-190's engine cowling. Black smoke poured out as the fighter rolled inverted and plunged toward the channel. Delaney confirmed the kill from the waist. The second Focke-Wulf broke off. For 6 minutes, the YB-40's firepower worked exactly as planned. 3 more fighters tried to close in, and 3 broke away. The overlapping streams of fire from 16 guns built a wall of lead no pilot dared to cross. The German shells couldn't penetrate, but Hedgehog was still slowing down. The main formation was now 6 miles ahead, then 7. Hartwell could barely see the bomber stream against the pale afternoon sky. Morrison checked fuel levels. They'd burned 800 gallons more than planned during the climb and combat. At this rate, they had about 90 minutes of fuel left to reach Alconbury, while the rest of the formation would land in 70. 2 more Focke-Wulfs appeared at 2 o'clock. These pilots didn't turn away. They knew the YB-40 couldn't keep up and couldn't escape. The German fighters circled from a distance, waiting for the bomber to fall farther behind, preparing to attack from several angles at once. Hartwell pushed the throttles forward again. Engine number 3's temperature climbed into the red. Morrison saw it but said nothing. The heavy escort bomber with 16 guns had become the hunted. The attack came at 4:43 p.m. 3 Focke-Wulfs from different directions, high right, low left, and straight ahead at 12 o'clock. Hartwell couldn't dodge. The overloaded bomber turned like a freight train. He held his course and altitude. The gunners fired together. The chin turret tracked the front attacker. The top turret swung right. The ball turret turned left. Both waist gunners fired across opposite windows. Empty casings poured across the floor. The whole plane shuddered from the recoil of 8 guns blazing at once. The lead Focke-Wulf's canopy shattered. It rolled right and fell smoking. The high attacker broke off. The low one held steady and fired a 2-second burst. 20mm shells ripped through Hedgehog's right wing, cutting a hydraulic line. Fluid splashed across the waist window. Delaney shouted damage reports. The right landing gear hydraulics were gone. They'd have to crank it down by hand if they ever made it home. Morrison rechecked the fuel. 72 minutes to Alconbury at current power. The main group was 8 miles ahead and still pulling away. They were alone over occupied France, German fighters circling above. Then the radio crackled. Another YB-40 crew, Captain Richard Hayes of the 305th Bomb Group, flying aircraft 42-5741. His gunship had also fallen behind. 2 YB-40s now lagged, both fighting to stay in the air, both burning fuel too fast. Hayes suggested they fly together. The combined fire from 32 guns might keep the enemy back. Hartwell agreed. Hayes dropped from 21,000 feet to match Hedgehog at 19.5. The Focke-Wulfs widened their orbit, 4 visible, maybe 6. They didn't attack, but they didn't leave either. At 5:07 p.m., Hartwell crossed the French coast, heading out. The channel spread grey and empty below them, 53 miles to the English shore, 41 minutes at current speed. Engine number 3 was still hot. Morrison had already pulled power back twice. They were losing altitude, 19,000, then 18.8, 18.6. Hayes radioed that his number 2 engine's oil pressure was dropping. He eased it back to prevent damage, slowing to 138 mph. Both bombers were limping home. Crews watching their fuel dials sink, praying the Germans wouldn't chase them over water. At 5:22 p.m., 2 Messerschmitt 109s appeared high at 6 o'clock, following the stragglers out to sea. Tail gunners called the intercept, range 400 yards and closing. The fighters dove through 18,000 feet, cannons firing at 800 yards. Hartwell couldn't climb, couldn't turn fast enough to dodge. The YB-40 was now just a slow, heavy target. Tail gunner Staff Sergeant Raymond Kark, 24, a former skeet-shooting champion from Cleveland, took aim. He'd never fired at targets this fast. The lead 109 closed to 600 yards. Kark walked his tracers across the sky. The German jinked left-right, then dived 20 degrees. His wingman followed. Both opened fire at 400 yards. Shells tore through Hedgehog's tail, one exploding in the stabilizer, another punching through the fuselage 2 feet behind Kark. The aircraft lurched. Hartwell felt the controls go soft. Morrison climbed back to inspect. Elevator cables were still intact, but the trim tab was jammed. Hartwell would have to fight the yoke all the way home. The Messerschmitts climbed for another attack. Hayes's YB-40 opened up with every dorsal gun, filling the air with streams of tracers. The German fighters broke away and climbed back toward France. Then at 5:31 p.m., 4 Republic P-47 Thunderbolts appeared from the northeast, long-range escorts returning from Belgium. They'd heard the distress calls. The P-47s dived on the Germans, who turned east and fled. The Thunderbolts didn't chase. They formed up beside the 2 crippled bombers, waggling their wings, escorting them home. Hartwell checked fuel again. 37 minutes left at current power. 29 miles to landfall. They would just make it, but the grand idea of the bomber escort experiment was already dying in the cold air over the channel. He understood it now. The YB-40 worked perfectly as a gunship. 16 50 calibers could tear apart any fighter that came close. The chin turret alone had revolutionized defense against head-on attacks. But the weight ruined everything. Once the regular B-17s dropped their bombs, they became lighter, faster, and climbed higher. The YB-40, still burdened with 11,000 rounds of ammo, over 4,000 extra pounds, was slower and heavier, turning from protector to target. At 5:47, Hayes radioed. His number 2 engine had failed, oil pressure 0. He feathered the prop. His YB-40 sank through 15,000 feet on 3 engines. Morrison did the math. Hayes wouldn't make Alconbury, maybe not even England. His fuel burn was too high. At 5:53 p.m., the English coast appeared. Hayes aimed for the nearest field, RAF Manston in Kent. He radioed an emergency. The tower cleared him for immediate landing. Hartwell watched Hayes's crippled bomber drop toward Manston, one gunship limping on 3 engines, another barely controllable. Both would need major repairs before flying again. At 6:18 p.m., Hedgehog touched down at Alconbury. Hartwell cranked the landing gear down manually. The right main locked just 15 seconds before touchdown. Ground crews later counted 16 bullet holes, 1 cut hydraulic line, 1 jammed trim tab, and 1 damaged stabilizer. Colonel Reed was waiting at the stand, wanting Hartwell's report on the YB-40's first combat trial. The flying destroyer, meant to guard bomber formations to Germany and back. Hartwell shut down the engines and climbed out, drenched in sweat, hands trembling from 90 minutes of fighting the controls. He looked at Reed and said the 3 words that ended the dream. It can't keep up. Reed ordered 7 more missions, hoping the first was an exception. Maybe new tactics or better formation placement could fix it. The second mission launched on June 15th toward Le Mans. 4 YB-40s flew, and all 4 fell behind after the bomb drop. The third, on June 22nd, hit the IG Farben synthetic rubber plant at Hulls. 11 YB-40s took off, 1 was lost to flak and fighters, and the rest returned hours after the main group. Engineers at Abbott's Ripton Depot kept trying fixes, altering ammo feeds, shifting weight forward, changing load procedures, but nothing helped. The problem was basic physics. A B-17F at takeoff weighed about 65,000 pounds. After dropping bombs, it dropped to 48,000. The YB-40, by contrast, started at 68,000 and after combat, still weighed 64,000. 4,000 pounds of guns and ammo couldn't be jettisoned. On June 28th, 6 YB-40s attacked Saint-Nazaire again, claimed 1 fighter kill, and all 6 fell behind. One crew reported being alone over France for 43 minutes. Alone meant exposed. The bomber built to defend others now needed defending itself. 8th Air Force analysis told the story. 48 sorties, 5 confirmed kills, 2 probables, 1 YB-40 lost. Every single one fell behind its formation post-bomb drop. Average separation 7 miles. Average time alone 38 minutes. Luftwaffe fighter chief Adolf Galland read the intelligence. German pilots had figured the YB-40s out fast. They looked different. Extra turret, no bomb bay doors, and always flew in the vulnerable positions. Once the formation dropped bombs, the YB-40s became stragglers. Galland's verdict was cold. Their kills were trivial and not worth the effort. His pilots preferred attacking the flying destroyers because they were easier prey, slow, heavy, and unable to run. On July 29th, the last 2 YB-40s flew their final combat mission, target U-boat yards at Kiel. Both fell behind. Both needed fighter escort to make it home, landing at emergency fields before reaching base. By August, General Karl Spaatz cancelled the program. The 12 surviving YB-40s returned to the US in November, most used as gunnery trainers, 4 stripped back to standard bombers. The idea was dead after just 3 months. The Army Air Forces had spent $469,000 per aircraft, $5.6 million total, on a design that made bombers weaker, not stronger. But one part survived. One breakthrough that saved thousands of crews later in the war. Engineers at Wright Field reviewed every combat report and noticed something crucial. Every YB-40 that fought off head-on attacks stopped them cold. The chin turret worked. 2 forward-facing 50 calibers with perfect coverage and no blind spot at 12 o'clock high. Boeing received the design immediately. By September 1943, the Bendix chin turret from the YB-40 entered mass production, the Bendix Model A. 2 Browning M2.50 cals, remote-controlled from the bombardier's position, 300 rounds per gun, with electric traverse and elevation. Douglas Aircraft fitted the turret on the final 86 B-17Fs off the line, and that single innovation changed bomber defense forever. Aircraft rolling off the production line. These new bombers were sent to England in October. Crews quickly called the addition the answer to 12 o'clock high attacks. Before the chin turret, German fighters struck B-17 formations head-on. The bombardier's position had only 2 cheek guns on either side of the nose, limited movement, narrow field of fire. Pilots could fly straight toward the bombers and shoot cannons through the blind spot in front. Focke-Wulf 190s destroyed more B-17s with frontal attacks than any other tactic. The chin turret erased that weakness. It gave full forward coverage. The bombardier aimed with a simple gun sight and pressed the trigger, 2 50-caliber guns converging fire at 400 yards. German pilots, once confident in frontal passes, now faced a storm of bullets they couldn't avoid. Combat reports in November confirmed the shift. The 91st Bomb Group flew B-17Fs with chin turrets on a mission to Gelsenkirchen. 12 frontal attacks, 10 broke off before reaching range, 2 pressed in and took heavy hits. 1 Focke-Wulf was confirmed destroyed. No bombers were lost to head-on assaults. Boeing made the chin turret standard on the new B-17G model. The first G rolled off the line in December 1943, soon becoming the definitive flying fortress. Production expanded across Boeing's Seattle and Wichita plants, Douglas in Long Beach and Tulsa, and Vega in Burbank. All factories produced standardized B-17Gs with the Bendix chin turret. Output surged. 50 planes a month in January 1944, 120 by March, and 230 by June. By April 1945, 8,680 B-17Gs had been delivered, each fitted with the turret born from the failed YB-40. The results were dramatic. The 303rd Bomb Group switched to B-17Gs in February 1944. Their frontal attack losses dropped from 12% to 3%. The 379th saw a similar fall, from 11 to 4%. The 384th kept detailed records. 43 bombers lost to frontal fire in 6 months before chin turrets, only 14 in the following 12 months. 8th Air Force analysts later calculated the overall effect. The chin turret cut frontal attack losses by 71% across all theaters. By VE Day, the B-17G served in 26 heavy bombardment groups in Europe. 4 in Italy and 2 in the Pacific, 32 groups total. Each flew 48 aircraft per mission, meaning 1,536 B-17Gs in combat at once. The YB-40 program had lasted just 3 months, flown 48 sorties, claimed 5 German fighters, and cost $5.6 million, an outright failure as an escort idea. But its chin turret flew on 8,680 bombers, guarding more than 290,000 combat sorties and saving an estimated 2,300 crews who might have died from frontal attacks without it. The flying destroyer died, but its invention lived. The YB-40 also left behind 2 other innovations. Engineers analyzing combat reports spotted real improvements beyond the chin turret. The first was the staggered waist gun design. On early B-17Fs, both waist gunners stood directly across from each other, bumping and blocking, while firing at targets from the sides. Footage showed them colliding as they tracked fast-moving fighters. The YB-40 had solved it by moving the right side gun forward 30 inches, creating a staggered setup. Each gunner now had room to move freely, reload faster, and cover wider angles. Boeing adopted the staggered waist in the B-17G. Crews reported a 40% wider firing field, fewer jams, and smoother coordination during simultaneous attacks. The 94th Bomb Group recorded the change. Before, average engagement time was 12 seconds before interference. After 27 seconds of continuous tracking, the third improvement came from the tail. Sergeant Kark had complained of poor visibility in the standard tail gunner station. Small windows, tight angles, hard to spot fighters approaching from low 6 o'clock. The Army Air Forces hired the Cheyenne Modification Center in Wyoming to redesign the tail section. Larger windows, improved view above and below, stronger armor, and a better gun mount created what became known as the Cheyenne tail. It became standard on late production B-17Gs. 3 key innovations from a failed project: chin turret, staggered waist guns, and Cheyenne tail, all built into the B-17G, all saving lives on every mission for the rest of the war. Captain James Hartwell went on to fly 16 more missions in regular B-17Fs, completing his 25-mission tour by October 1943. He survived and returned home to Pennsylvania, never again flying a YB-40 after that first Saint-Nazaire mission. But in December, he came back to Alconbury as a training officer. The first B-17Gs were arriving. He watched new crews gather around them, pointing at the chin turret, asking how it worked and where it came from. Hartwell told them about the YB-40, the flying destroyer that couldn't keep up, the gunship that became a target, the program that failed so completely it was cancelled before summer ended. Then he showed them the turret, explained its controls, demonstrated its field of fire, and walked them through the story of how failure had forged one of the war's most vital defenses. Hartwell finished explaining the ammunition loading steps. The crews listened closely. They understood. The chin turret that would save their lives came from a plane that had failed. It was an expensive mistake. $5.6 million spent on a system that lasted only 3 months in combat. One pilot asked Hartwell if it had been worth it. Worth the money, the effort, and the crews who flew those 12 doomed bombers, knowing they'd fall behind. Hartwell looked at the B-17G on the hard stand, its chin turret glinting in the pale English sun. He thought of those head-on attacks, of Focke-Wulfs diving through formations at 12 o'clock high, of bombardiers who now had a weapon to stop them. He thought of the 8,680 bombers that would carry that turret before the war ended. Worth it, he said. Every mission, every dollar, every bullet hole in Hedgehog's skin. The YB-40 taught us how to fail forward. The final YB-40 mission flew on July 29, 1943. By August, the program was cancelled. By November, all 12 surviving aircraft had returned to the US. Most turned into trainers, a few scrapped. One even appeared as wreckage in the 1946 film The Best Years of Our Lives. None survived intact. No museums kept them. No restorations brought them back. The flying destroyer vanished from history, but its innovation lived on in every B-17G over Europe, in every crew that survived a frontal attack, in every pilot who reached 25 missions because a Focke-Wulf broke away under Chin turret fire. The 8th Air Force flew over 290,000 missions with B-17Gs. The Chin turret fired in combat on about 114,000 of them. Conservative estimates say it prevented around 2,300 bomber losses, meaning 23,000 airmen came home who otherwise wouldn't have. At the National Museum of the United States, Air Force in Dayton, Ohio, a restored B-17G, tail number 44-83514, Shoo 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 Baby, sits gleaming under the lights. The plaque mentions that the Chin turret was standard equipment on all G models. It doesn't mention the YB-40. It doesn't say where the turret came from. It doesn't tell the story of 12 planes that failed so completely their program lasted barely 3 months. History remembers victories, the B-17G that helped win the war, the flying fortress that became an icon, the bomber that brought crews home through hellfire. History forgets the failures, the YB-40 that couldn't keep up, the $5.6 million flying destroyer that needed protection instead of giving it. But failures teach lessons success never can. The YB-40 proved that a bad result can still hide a good idea, that costly mistakes can yield priceless innovations, that 3 months of failure can shape years of progress. Boeing's engineers didn't see the YB-40 as a failure. They saw it as research. They kept what worked and discarded what didn't. The Chin turret worked. The extra weight didn't. So they kept the turret and dropped the weight. Simple, effective, life-saving. If this story touched you the way it touched us, please hit that like button. Every click helps bring these forgotten stories back to light. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We're uncovering hidden tales of engineers, pilots, and crews who turned failure into victory every day. Real innovation, real courage. Leave a comment below. Tell us where you're watching from. Are you in the United States, the UK, Canada, or Australia? Our community spans the world. You're not just watching, you're helping keep history alive. Tell us your story. Tell us if someone in your family served. Let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for ensuring the YB-40 crews aren't forgotten. They failed spectacularly, but their failure saved thousands.